A boss be rising, baby TV's igniting, turn the volume up, yeah the whole world's invited. From the gravel road to the neon dream, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss be rising, sky ain't even the ceiling when she hits go live, everybody feels it. She's the queen of the comeback.
Your grown child calls you with a problem. You listen to the whole story. You ask questions. You think about it. They finally say, Mom, what do you think I should do? So you give them thoughtful, experienced, absolutely free advice. They say, You're right. They hang up, and then they proceed to do the exact thing you just spent 45 minutes explaining was probably a terrible idea. 3 days later, the phone rings again. Guess what? Guess what we're talking about? The same problem. Yeah, tonight we're asking a very important question on behalf of mothers everywhere. If you already knew you weren't going to listen to me, why did you ask?
Need advice? Ask a bee. The answers may not be perfect, but they'll be entertaining. Submit your letters and let Bee mind your business for a while.
All right, welcome back to Ask a Bee and our week of talking about life with adult children and grandchildren. Tonight we're getting into one of the strangest changes that happens when your children grow up. When they're little, they come to you because they need an answer, right? When they're adults, they may come to you for an entirely different reason. And sometimes we parents don't realize the job has changed. Maybe they don't always need mom to solve the problem. Maybe they need mom to be the one place where they can say everything, that they're thinking without having to pretend they have everything figured out. Unfortunately, nobody told mom that before she spent the rest of the evening worrying about it. Not at all. Let's get into this letter. All right. Dear B, my son is grown and has a life and family of his own. But whenever something goes wrong, I'm still one of the first people he calls. Relationship problems, work problems, money problems, disagreements with friends, decisions involving the kids. I hear all of it. And honestly, I'm grateful for that. I know plenty of parents whose grown children barely tell them anything, so I don't take for granted that my son trusts me enough to talk about what's happening in his life. That's a good outlook for that. Absolutely. The problem starts when he asks the question that apparently means something completely different to him than it does to me. Mom, do you think I should, or what do you think I should do? Pardon me. Because I take that question seriously. I listen to everything he tells me, think through the situation, draw from 50 something years of making my own mistakes, and give him the best answer I can. He listens. Sometimes he even says, You're right, Mom. Then he hangs up and does almost exactly what we just discussed not doing. Ruh-roh. A few days later, the predictable thing happens and he calls me again. Now we're discussing the consequences of the decision I already warned him about. I love this man with everything in me, but there are moments when I want to answer the phone and say, Before we begin, I need to know which department you're calling today. We're looking for actual advice. Are we looking for actual advice, or am I simply customer service? The frustrating part is that once he tells me something is wrong, I don't stop thinking about it when the conversation ends. I'm his mother. Now I'm worried. I'm considering solutions. I'm wondering whether he's okay. I'm thinking about how this might affect his family. Meanwhile, he got whatever he needed from telling me, hung up the phone, and apparently went about his Tuesday while I accidentally adopted a problem that was never mine to solve. Goodness. lately I've started wondering whether I've misunderstood these conversations entirely. Maybe when my adult child calls, he doesn't always want an answer. Maybe sometimes he needs to hear himself say the problem out loud. Maybe he wants reassurance that somebody understands. Maybe he wants a person who already knows the good, bad, and ridiculous part of him and isn't going anywhere because he made another questionable decision. But then, what am I supposed to do when I can clearly see him heading towards a wall I've already hit myself? Hmm. Do I warn him? Do I keep my mouth shut? Do I offer advice knowing he may ignore it? And most importantly, how do parents learn the difference between the moments when our adult children actually want our wisdom and the moments when what they really need is simply a safe place to land? Signed, apparently, just the help desk. All right, well, listen up, help desk. Let's think about this for a second. Pardon me. Maybe they don't want an answer. Maybe they just want their mom. Adults spend a lot of their lives having to look like they don't know what they're doing. At work, in relationships, raising children, and managing responsibilities, they're expected to make decisions and keep everything moving. Mom may be the one of the few people that can call and say, I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing here. That doesn't necessarily mean they're handing mom the problem to solve. Sometimes talking is how people organize their own thoughts. They may hear the answer while they're explaining the situation. They may simply need someone who knows their history and doesn't require them to start the story from the very beginning, right? Hi, Mr. Bob and Erin. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. It's about adult children and how to parent as an adult child's parent, I guess. Sorry. The title is My Grown Child Asks for Advice, then ignores it. I get a letter and I talk about those things. Okay, so to get back to this, sorry. The conversation can be valuable even if they never follow a single piece of advice. It's okay for them not to. They have to learn from their own mistakes, right? That's what everybody does. We learn from our own mistakes. And if you don't give them that opportunity, like last night's show, as I was kind of trying to say, it's enabling, is what it is. If you take care of every problem, how are they going to figure it out themselves? So they're not kids. You don't have to be there to, you, even if you were a helicopter parent, now is not the time to be a helicopter parent. You can't fix everything. You have to let them fix their own. Okay, so what do you think, and tell me what to do, are not the same if you really want to get technical about it. Parents hear what do you think and immediately reach for decades of experience. We remember making similar mistakes. We can see consequences our children haven't reached yet. And naturally, we want to save them the pain. But an adult child asking for your opinion isn't necessarily surrendering the final decision. They may want another perspective and still choose differently. That's what being an adult is all about. And that's what you have to allow them to do. You can't just you can't be that person that's always in the middle, because in the middle sometimes it's kind of crowded. And sometimes they just need you to be on the shoulder. This is what I did or would do. And you know what? It's just like a lot of things. They will take from it what they like, what they can deal with, what they can use, and that's the point. That's why we tell them these things, so they have something to use. I don't want any of my children to do exactly what I've done. I want them to do one better. And if that means knowing more, absolutely, I want them to go forward. But it's frustrating when they choose differently. I get it. It's frustrating when you're convinced they're making a mistake, but respecting an adult child means accepting that advice as information, not authority. I have three wonderful grown children. One lives far away in Florida. I'm in Texas. One lives right down the street. The other one is in my home. And I have a unique relationship with all three of them. And we also have our separate relationships because we all have lives to live. You know, they all have partners. They all are very happy in what they do, their jobs and everything. So I'm here for advice. And you have to be that because any more is, well, it's detrimental to both. I mean, obviously, to your pocketbook. And when you're gone, what's going to happen? You're not going to be there to do that. Right. So once we give ownership of the decisions, it still belongs to them. You can't take any ownership in that. They're adults. You have to let them adult or they'll never learn. And when you're gone, I mean, you don't want to leave this world thinking that your children are not going to be okay without you, right? I certainly don't. But you know what? If I left this world tomorrow, please, sir, no. But if I left this world tomorrow, I know my kids are okay. It may not have been all that I taught them, but it has a lot to do with the things that they've learned on their own. They unload the problem and mom accidentally picks it up. I've been there. I've done it. I've got three grown children. I got one that's thousands of miles away I'd never get to see. And you know what? His birthday is this week. But let me tell you something. Instead of being selfish and wanting him here and, being that mother that, well, I'm going to disown you because you're moving away or whatever. I can't be that because my son deserves a chance at life and he deserves to go out there and make his own mistakes. So does my other son and my daughter. They all three deserve that chance. This may be one of the biggest traps in these conversations. Your child calls overwhelmed, talks for 30 minutes, and feels lighter afterwards. Wonderful. Unfortunately, sometimes mom now weighs 15 pounds more because she picked up everything they just put down. The conversation ends, right? But you're still thinking about their bills, relationship, job, or whatever else they told you about. Their crisis starts occupying space in your head, even though you really have no control over what happens next. Supporting an adult child doesn't mean becoming emotionally responsible for every problem they share. Parents may need boundaries inside their own minds too. I love you, I'm here for you, but this problem still belongs to you. It's that simple. It's easy. And then it's so hard, you know? It really is because you want so much. And me as a mother of three, I want so much to say, hey, how you doing? Oh, well, I'm not doing so great with this. Well, okay, let me see how I can fix it. No, I had to stop myself from doing that because it's the same thing that my mother did. And I don't blame her for anything that she did. She wanted the best life for me because of the life that we had. Parents divorced early, all that story. My history is not the story here. But the point is she enabled a lot to where when she first passed away, it was really overwhelming for me. Extremely. I mean, I had her house to take care of and everything. I just barely had my own and stuff like that. So I had to grow up even more when she passed away. And mind you, I'll be 55 next month. and she passed away 6 years ago. So, yeah, there's a lot of growing up to do, even as an adult of an adult child, adult parent of an adult child. So, some lessons cannot be passed down, right? They have to be lived. You have to let your children live their life and be who they are because they can't be you. I'm sorry. As much as you want them to be, or a better version of you, because that's what I want. I want my children to be a billion times better than me, right? And they are. And I'm proud of that. Did I have something to do with it? I like to think so. Probably like to think more than I actually did. But my children are amazing, and I am so proud of them. Sure, they have hard times. We all have hard times. That's just how it goes. But one of the maddening parts of getting older is realizing how many mistakes you could save younger people from if they would just listen. And unfortunately, we probably ignored somebody older who tried to save us from a few of ours too. Experience, yeah, it can be shared, but sometimes understanding cannot. Your child may need to choose the wrong relationship, trust the wrong person, take the wrong job, or just make bad financial decisions before the lesson becomes real to them. That doesn't make your advice worthless. The words may come back later when they're finally ready to understand them. Parenting adults sometimes means planting wisdom you may not get to watch. Okay? You might not get to see them use it immediately, but eventually you see parts and bits and pieces of it. And that's where you can believe that you've done something right. That's how I see it. No, they don't live the same way I do. They don't live the way we did when they lived in my house. And I'm okay with that because it's their lives and I wanted them to make it theirs, not mine. So I guess my ruling, do you want my advice or do you just need me to listen? Maybe this entire problem could change with one question at the beginning of a conversation. Do you want my thoughts or do you just need somewhere to put this for a minute? Not a hard question to ask. If they want advice, mom can give it honestly. And you know what? Then the decision, just let it go. If they need to vent, mom can listen without spending the next 3 hours designing a rescue operation. Nobody requested. But what happens when you believe the choice they're about to make could genuinely hurt them or their family? Does being their parent give you an obligation to speak up anyway, or does respecting your grown child sometimes mean allowing them to make a decision you desperately wished they wouldn't? There's no right or wrong to this, honestly, because that time is over since they're not in your home anymore. Even as young adults, before they moved out, it still wasn't your decision. So guide them, teach them what you know, give them something that they can take and make something with. You just need to give them the bones. They're the ones that need to do the architecture. Okay? Don't worry about your children making mistakes because guess what? They're going to. Long after you're gone, too. That's called being human. Being an adult human is rough. Having somebody that's been through it already is a blessing. Don't miscount that. It is a blessing to have your parents. I still have my father, and I still feel very blessed to still have him. I have a wonderful stepmother. I have people in my life, you know, and I've lost some people in my life recently. Um, Now, I know everybody's watching today because Dolly Parton has passed away. I'm not going to pretend that this one isn't hitting me hard. Um, so I'm not going to take this show too much longer. The thing is I also lost an aunt this week, and in losing both of those people, I lost a lot of connection to other people. You know, because when somebody passes away in your family, unfortunately, people tend to spread apart, and then you don't see somebody ever again, or maybe it's a long time, and that's a hard part. And that's something I have to deal with, and I'm okay with that. But let me tell you something else. If my mama were here, yeah, it wouldn't be so hard because she was that connection. You know, I had the pleasure of getting to go to Dollywood. I didn't get to see Dolly while I was there, but everybody here knows that I am absolutely a fan of Dolly, and I hate that she's gone. I love that she was here for me because she was, even though she didn't know me. I'm wearing her shirt right now that I got at Dollywood. That cowboy hat y'all have seen me in, that was from Dollywood. And I will not pretend that this one did not just take the skin right off my back, because it sure did. But listen, I'm going to go ahead and end this show pretty quick. But I want to say to the writer, give them what you know, give them as much as you know, because they will think about those things later on in life, especially after you're gone. And sometimes, you know, kids, it takes us a lot to get it through to them. And when they finally do, it's a prized moment. When you're gone and they get it to click, remember too that that prize moment, that one's for them, not you. There's no selfishness here, I don't feel, but I will say this, you know, maybe one of the hardest lessons in parenting grown children is realizing that being needed doesn't always mean being needed for an answer. Sometimes your adult child isn't calling mom because mom knows what to do. They're calling because mom is still one of the safest places they know. They can bring you the messy version of the story, the scared version, the version where they haven't figured anything out yet. And trust that you will still answer tomorrow until you don't. So you got to do that until you can. That's actually a pretty special place to hold in someone's adult life. We just have to learn not to take ownership of everything they set down while they're visiting or calling or whatever it is. So maybe next time the phone rings, you know, before we activate the mom emergency response, which we all do that, I have a whole team, we ask one simple question. Do you want my advice, or do you need me to listen? And then comes the truly difficult part. We believe their answer. Okay. If they say, I just need you to listen, you should take that as the biggest compliment you could ever get from your child, because that's trust. Tell me how this works in your family. You know, uh, does your grown child actually take your advice, or are you apparently running an unpaid emotional customer service department? Listen, I'm gonna head on out of here, but you guys take care of yourselves, please. absolutely take care of yourselves and each other. And I will buzz you later. Go see my friends at Tuber Chat, please. Word up.
I want to take a minute to shout out Tuber Chat. If you're a creator who's tired of surface level advice, says, and actually wants to understand how YouTube works, that's the space. It's real conversations with real creators who are in the trenches, building channels, testing ideas. No posturing, no gatekeeping, no fake guru energy, just people sharing what's working, what isn't, and why. If you're serious about growing, learning, and not doing this alone, check out Tuber Chat. The link is in the description.
A boss be rising.